Hey everybody, this is Val, signing back in after a very long absence. So, I'm coming back to you guys with an idea that I'm calling Character Design Workshop. Now, most of my time spent when it comes to art projects is spent working on specifically designs for different characters. I love to come up with unique concepts, unique premises. That's where the best drawings come from. That's where a lot of the most forward thinking comes. And I also find that that's where a lot of the most interesting artistic discussion comes from, working on characters. That's when you have the time to really sit with people and like, oh, what if this? What if he did that? You know, what if all these different ideas? And so I have a lot of characters I've had time to workshop, and a lot of ones that I haven't, that I've simply enjoyed the premise of. But I love to encourage that among other people as well, to constantly work towards new, different, more colorful character designs. So I'd like to do a few videos talking about characters I've designed, and some of them about character design in general. Talk about different premises and, some of the different worlds and characters and overall designs that I've worked on in the past. So with that going forward, that's going to be the premise for this video set. So stay tuned and, let me know what you think. Give me your ideas, and by all means, give me all the feedback you can, because I want to hear different people's ideas for concepts of the characters. I mean, who knows? Nothing's set in stone. You never know what you might use, what you might need, and you never know what you might hear from me that might inspire you towards a new or interesting character. So let's get started with a premise that I worked on a couple of years ago. Now, I only have one drawing for this premise, but so much conversation went into it. It was one that I really enjoy, and I'd love to do a project in this world, maybe a game or maybe just some writing. So I'm going to show you the drawing. It's a little bit of a mess because it was being worked on in just this frenzy of like idea. I mean, you know how it is when you have something new. It's so hard to commit it properly to paper when you have so much going through your head. So this picture I titled Rumbleslum. Rumble, like something falling over, and then slum, like, like a slum that you might live in. And so I drew this really like junked up looking city. Obviously, there's a little bit of that, like, Wild West giant mechanical spider in there, but with the bellowing smoke and all this. So, the concept with this was my, like, drawing reminder of this cool world that I'd come up with. Maybe I was sitting in a class or work. I can't remember where the idea originally sparked within me, but I loved this idea of, I've always loved the idea of tiny people living in a larger sized thing, or normal people living in something giant, which is essentially the premise here. I have no earthly clue what caused the world that this is to be the way it is. I'm sure I could come up with something if I was given the time, but it's such an implausible premise. But that's not how it happened isn't really the point. It's the result that's interesting. So the world in its concept is all the same people, everybody who is where they are right now. Nothing changes there, except the world itself gets bigger. Everything that exists. Everything except literally the clothes on your back. Just kaboom, giant, 100 times the size. Just absolutely gigantic. And everybody is left to live in it. So imagine being literally the size of an ant. That's the actual size that all of humanity is. Just a little bit of that, like, honey, we shrunk ourselves type deal. But in a survival situation. Imagine that as like an end of the world type thing, where people had to live in that. So you got shrunk down to that size. Even just people who live in your own house, it could take you days to find them. I mean, well, it depends on how fast you move. Like, I imagine carpet fibers or like trees, you have to kind of wander through them. But so, the whole world, just like this immediately, everything falls apart. It's a very weird kind of apocalypse, because no one dies per se. It's not like explosions and boom and whatever, like giant earthquakes. It's just, there's no infrastructure anymore. There's nothing is simple. You're, boom, there you are, you're in this world, you're the size of an ant. How do you get off your bed, first of all? Like, that's its own adventure. And if you can do it, now you have to eat. Where is their food? A lot of people wouldn't survive that naturally. It's an apocalypse type story, so there's bound to be casualties. But, so we fast forward from there, and what we work on are the type of people and civilizations that now eke out a living in this crazy world. So animals are the same size that they were, so every type of predator is like this huge threat, but I always lived with this concept, with this idea that human beings, no matter what world you put them in, they always survive. I mean, that's the whole premise of an apocalypse story to begin with, is that people do anything to live. Whatever they have to do, they'll come up with it. They'll get clever, they'll get crafty. The smart people will find a way to make things work the way they work. So I imagine just whole civilizations living in just this strange pseudo world now, where you could have like a chair that's just like that's a village. People would go in there with whatever tools they could make and carve out little homes in it, and little, like ants, they would move up inside it and try to live, find some kind of food source. If they could just find a candy bar, their whole, town could live off it for months. So, and you would have to have people like hunting and living on like bugs and all kinds of crazy stuff. But like all interesting apocalypse stories, the people that are the most innovative are kind of the ones you want to focus the story on. So I had this idea of people building even just like an RC car. In that circumstance, if you had just some engineers like who had managed to find each other, or just a couple of people who knew basic soldering, they could get like an RC car moving, and you could fit a ton of people in that. You could even, if you wanted to, you could have your own whole little like road warrior thing going on with just like remote control cars. But I liked the idea of taking like a little electric toy, or like maybe like an erector set or something, and just building a big platform for people to live on. So you'd have a whole little town of people just living on this platform that would move around, and they'd find resources and take what they could carry and so on and so forth. And that was the concept. Now, if you look back at the picture, my idea there was it was on this bed, and then the background looks a little doofy. It was, like I said, it was a quick drawing, but the idea was that that's like a wallpaper in someone's house, and so people live in this thing, and it's powered. My little slum city is powered by a piece of coal. They live in one particular house, and there's this giant bag of charcoal that was like knocked over in the yard. So the little different cities that live there like have to wander up and fight each other, or like maybe trade for resources, and whoever controls, it's like whoever controls the spice. But in this case, it's just single briquettes of coal, which are now something of immense value. Because where else are you going to get that? It's so much work to find it. It's a lightweight thing, relatively, not to the size of the people, but it's like soapstone. It's light. So it's like a viable resource, as opposed to like if you had to move a battery and you were that tiny, it would be incredibly difficult. So little things like that. And naturally, as the existing infrastructure, houses and stuff gone unmaintained, cars, all that, whatever, people, everything sort of shuts down, electricity goes, all that kinds of stuff. So everybody has to get desperate and just sort of scavenge from the remnants of society. And I feel like there's a tremendous amount of interesting stories that could be told within that world. Even if you cut out the idea of the little rumbling city and you just made it about the people that live there, you could make some beautiful conceptual pieces of just like characters looking out across a sea of carpet, or just the idea of like what it would be like to go hunt in grass, to just be that size as a human, not an ant that's has the strength of a bug, but just a group of little people who have to go out there and find a singular thing to kill and eat and try to bring home. That's a tremendous endeavor. It'd be like fighting a monster. A bug in its, if it was the same size as you, is something out of a horror movie, some absolute creature you'd have to contend with. It'd be almost impossible. People would have to be crafty. People would have to have that ingenuity that inevitably makes stories like that very interesting. So there's a world of conflict you could bring up in there. You can have warring tribes. You can have just differing people. You could even make a decent story about just characters wandering around that world. Tell it in like vignettes and find different vantage points to talk about different groups of people. But that was the idea I had, and I liked it a lot. I'd love to revisit it and do more designs in that world, but I've never really nailed down where the level of like technology of it is. There's a lot of little details that I've never quite panned out, and part of that is because I'm so excited about the idea that I don't want to commit to anything. Like, I couldn't just say like, okay, it's this now, this is what's going on, everything uses this type of technology, and it would like establish an aesthetic, but then I'd come up with all these different ideas for what to do with it, and it was just too much to ever put on paper, so I thought I'd just share it with you guys. But yeah, that's my basic concept. So let me know what you think. Talk it over. Give me any feedback you wanna give me. As always, send your hate mail to val@gmail.com if you have anything to say. And signing off. Have a great one, guys.